All right, thank you. Hello and welcome everyone. I'm humbled and honored to receive your presence today, an evening which celebrates literature, art, and all its glory. It's day two of OCLF edition third, and on behalf of SGRKF, I am Priyanka Sharma, your moderator for the evening. I was preparing myself for the moderation today and I landed on an amazing write up I found in the Journal of Advances in Scholarly Researches. A specific part of which I think stands so relevant with what we have in store for you today, and it goes like the connection between literature and myth is one of mutual dependence. Even though literature cannot be reduced to myth and myth cannot be reduced to literature, nice own. Myth has always been an integral element of literature. Not only does it offers a repository of multifaceted stories for the fictional world making of literature, which expands, modifies, or I can say rewrites the mythological elements in the process of creative reception. And if I had a human representation of this intersection between self-help, Indian epics, spirituality, and leadership, I just can't find anyone else but our very own Shubha Vilas sir. We're lucky to have him with us today for the conversation around his latest release and making Ramayana relevant to life. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Priyanka ji. Very happy to be a part of Orange City Literature Festival. It's always a pleasure to be on this platform and share my thoughts and views on the subject of making Ramayana relevant today.
Absolutely. So we were so delighted to have this conversation. And with your permission, of course, a lot of people know you, but for the ones who've been uninitiated, I would like to give them a little brief. Sir is a lifestyle coach, a storyteller, and an author. He had studied patent law after completing his engineering degree, but finally chose a path of spiritual seeker. Ramayana, The Game of Life, is his best-selling series. And he's also the author of Open-Eyed Meditation. Now, the reviews of which I was going through, and a lot of people had some really authentic and life-changing experiences to share in comments and feedbacks, which actually left me to read more about you. But I got to know that Mystical Tales for a Magical Life and Perfect Love 5.5 Ways to Lasting Relationships are also to his credit. The focus of his work is the application of scriptural wisdom to day life and addressing the needs of corporations and youth through his thought-provoking scenario, one of which we are very lucky to have him with us today for. He has also delivered more than 5,000 talks. Now that's a huge number. Let me surprise you with more that he has inspired more than 5,25,000 people still counting across in the last 10 years. He's also visiting faculty for several female schools in India, including the Indian Institute of Management, IIM, and Nasi Monji Institute of Management Studies, Mumbai. He's also been a guest speaker at prestigious Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Boston, Dresden International University, Germany, Johannesburg, and several centers of Indian Institute of Technology in India. And also, apart from this, he is advisory board of MIT Pune's online education system. And let me tell you one more thing which absolutely had me crazy was that he has also spoken at Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Samsung, and he has not only spoken for them, but he has spoken for their world headquarters in USA. Now, with all of that in background, I think it's perfect foundation for us to look forward to listening in because like I said, when people like him come on profiles, on stages, on platforms, they're coming from a place of impact. And trust me, honestly, so it feels great to have you at this moment. I'm so looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Priyanka ji, for so enthusiastically introducing me. Happy to be here.
No, genuinely, I'll tell you, I was researching through all of that as usual moderation processes. And I really like the fact that people come back to you. Like they have a habit of dropping their comments, their feedbacks. There is a conversation which is ongoing. So your PR is not just coming from your team, but there are people validating it, engaging with it, supporting it, and that told me the kind of credibility you enjoy. And of course, moving ahead, I would just take a moment and I'll start my question answer sessions. So my first question was, as an author, writing books is an extension of your deep sense of responsibility towards society. That is what your website mentions. And in 2013, you decided to, writing a book series on Ramayana, a series that brought the epic out of the closet and revealed the depth of learning hidden inside. Now, you embarked on an ambitious project of 6-volume series titled Ramayana, the Game of Life. Now, it goes without saying that it involves extensive research from original literature like Valmiki Ramayana, Kamba Ramayana, and Ramcharitramanas. How has that journey been personally? Because there's a lot of content out there, and how do you bring it to us?
Thank you for this question. If you ask me,
Okay.
these 8 years have been pure nectar. I have loved studying
Okay.
the scriptures. I have just immersed myself in them for so many years now, and of course, I did write books in the in between. But I consider the greater fortune, the ability to read, absorb, and meditate on these epics from their source, and delve into the commentaries of great teachers, study them thoroughly, and relish them. See, it's like this: if you enjoy something, then you can actually share it with others with greater confidence, right? So for
Absolutely.
me, that's how it has been, you know. So I have loved the Ramayana. My whole experience of studying, reading, meditating, sharing it, I've loved it. And anybody who's heard me, they know that I love it because it's visible when I speak. You know, most people tell me that, you know, when I speak Ramayana, I'm a different person. And I agree because that book has really impacted me very deeply. So as I said, that's what the research has done to me. It has helped me on my personal journey of life.
That's amazing because I think the fact that a lot of people really want to share their knowledge, but the fact how much has it influenced themselves really shows through. Like it exposes your inner vulnerabilities and at the same time ends up becoming your strength. And I did watch a lot of like there was one particular video, and I personally thought that for 2 hours I will not be able to put my attention into, but trust me, I was disappointed because I was able to put myself through 2 hours and I had no friends to it. So what I did was then I searched, okay, Shubha Vilas said, then I had few more videos and then I binge watched it for next 3 hours. So that is true. I can personally validate this because I am pretty clueless when it comes to these kind of content being developed and served to people. But the moment I was going through those videos, like you said, because you enjoy it, I was on that journey with you. I did not feel like I had no clue. I did not feel like this is not relevant to me. Rather, I was on this journey with you. So if you were telling it as a speaker that you enjoy, I can tell you as a listener that absolutely true. I
Thank you.
enjoyed it as well. Okay. So, at the cost of sounding preliminary, because I just said that I come from a little clueless place, but it's been in my mind since the moment I saw the titles and book lineup. Why Ramayana? Why not any other mythological literature? Say Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita. I mean, we Indians definitely enjoy a huge amount of choices when it comes to scriptures and literatures, which is relevant to mythology. So, why this particular book?
So, Priyanka ji, before I answer that question, let me tell you that I do not like the word mythology. If you know
Okay.
me,
Okay.
because the word mythology is actually a misnomer. It is not the right word for our scriptures because the word mythology comes from the word myth. Myth means
Myth.
fiction. And
True.
the Ramayana and Mahabharata are called as itihas in Sanskrit.
Hmm.
Itihas means history. There's a
True.
big difference when you call something itihas and when you call
Hmm.
something mythology.
Mythology.
Um,
True.
so when you call something mythology, it means it never happened. That means it's
Right.
not part of our history. But when you call something itihas, it has happened and is very much part of our history. So this is
Right.
the platform on which I stand whenever I speak
Lovely.
and whenever I share. Uh, but as far as why Ramayan, my answer is
Hmm.
very simple. The credit goes to my grandmother.
Hmm.
When I was a small child, my grandmother used to tell us stories from the Ramayana. And I
Okay.
have grown up listening to the Ramayana hundreds of times from my grandmother. And I would
Hmm.
just love her narration and the way she would narrate. It just opened up so much for me personally. But when I grew up, and of course, you know, we tend to forget what we learned in the childhood for pretty long, right? But at some
Hmm.
point, when I was studying different scriptures, I came across the Ramayana. I heard one of my teachers speaking from the Ramayana, and that immediately reminded me of my younger days. And I said, I need to go back. I need to study it. I need to really delve deep into it. So when I thought of writing something, I couldn't think of anything better than the Ramayana, obviously, because it has been so much a part of my growing. Right?
Correct. I mean, that's right. If something is introduced to us in such a way, then of course there is an affinity to it which cannot be matched. And yes, my correct takeaway from here is not calling it mythology anymore, calling it historical.
Thank you. You can call
But
it
that is
epics, you can call
important.
it scriptures, you can call it itihas, whatever.
That's what I think. This is something that we should understand or probably get aware of. That like that's what I was trying to also tell when we were discussing with the team, that why there is a certain specific need for us to using right words, because that also leads us to have understanding of it. That also leads to conversation being done in a particular way. So, for an example, the simple way that you told me, it's not mythology. It's not something that has not happened. It's rather something that is very much a part of our legacy. So yes, number one takeaway taken. Okay. Also, that is also, I think, कि चलो ठीक है हमारे grandparents had introduced us to these stories, but I personally feel that this generation, the one that I am of, or the ones that are going to be coming in, I'm really not sure if we would be able to access the stories in these way. Probably there would be the bank of stories because we now have internet. But I don't know if we will have a lot of people telling it this particular way, because I don't think you might have found someone exactly like your grandmother after she was not there. Neither can I find my grandmother anymore again. So do you think now more than ever, the generation that is right from millennial generation Z or the generations coming ahead, they need to know about our historical legacy more than ever?
That's precisely the reason I began writing in my life.
Right.
There's a school where I'm very closely connected to. I've been guiding them, and I've been a part of the school for a
Mm-hmm.
long period of time. It's
Mm-hmm.
a school based in Mumbai, and
Mm-hmm.
one time I went to the library of the school just to check out what kids read, and what kids have
Mm-hmm.
access to. I found every book which is non-academic, written by Western scholars,
Okay.
Western
Mm-hmm.
authors, and speaking
Mm-hmm.
about Western culture, speaking about
Mm-hmm.
Western habits, Western mindsets, and
Mm-hmm.
with its flaws and with its strengths, basically. And I
Right.
grew up in my own younger days reading a lot of those literature. So I
Mm-hmm.
was looking for some Indian context literatures which can actually
Mm-hmm.
help them understand the socio-economic, the socio-psychological situation in India. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't find any, hardly anything good there, in the library. And that's when I
Okay.
realized. So I started saying, "Come on, why are our kids being exposed only to a certain type of culture?" Uh,
Right.
then I realized I can't complain, because if I'm not a part of the solution, I'm a part of the problem, right? So I,
True.
so I can say all I want, to criticize, complain, saying that no, this. I said I need to do something about it. That day
Mm.
I began writing.
Oh my
That is the
goodness.
day I really began writing. And
Okay.
so my thought when I began writing was I'll just write a book that might probably be a spiral bound book that can be put in the library at least. That's what I
Okay.
originally thought of, but I never expected that
Mm-hmm.
the first book itself will become a national bestseller and really do so well as a series. And it gave me so much of opportunities to really connect with people and share the message of Ramayana.
Mhm. No, but I really, I mean, I represent a lot of people who would be thankful, because there is a part of society which neglects the importance of it, but there's a huge part of society which is still connected to our own legacy. And they do not have credible sources. Like, I still see my mother, and I don't know if this relates with or not, but she has a particular liking for people who do discourses on Bhagavad Gita or something like that. So she said, no, Priyanka, the people I used to listen while I grew up, I cannot see that kind of people coming nowadays. I said, I could not relate with it at the very first instance. And then there was a pre recording session on some other spiritual channel. And then she called me and she said, if you have access to this channel, watch it right now and understand what I'm speaking about. Shubha said, I can't tell you. I understood only when I saw that this is what I was missing when she was saying as a point. So probably we do need people who, one, are credible. Second, they love it. But most importantly, really feel strongly about it. They are not doing, because there are perks of doing this, because again there is a lot of scope for this, but that should not be the reason why people should be doing this. Like spiritual discourses or understanding our historical legacy gets you a lot of benefit, popularity, and fame. But like you said, your reason is none of that. All of that is coming as a byproduct. You probably had just in mind that you want to share that knowledge, you want to search it through, and whatever happens, happens, and is a byproduct.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
So that is
the
the,
most
yeah.
amazing thing is, a lot of my readers
Mm-hmm.
are youngsters, hundreds and thousands of them.
Right, right.
Every second, third day, I find some youngster reaching out to me and saying thank you for writing these books. Uh, so because they are written in a racy, very gripping narrative,
Oh, yes.
in a way that a young mind wants,
Mm-hmm.
filled with great imagination, filled with great adventure, but at the same time very authentic and very
Mm-hmm.
rooted to our original versions basically.
No, that is true. Also, I can also put my credibility to that, because when I was going through your website, when I go you do, what you're committed to, what you have in lineup, and what all you have done. And I think that shows how committed your team and you are when it comes to people who would be coming across, be it a reader, be it a general enthusiast of the topic, or just somebody who wants to know you. They would leave with a correct understanding, which is so missing when I see a lot of speakers coming up. Not because they don't want to do it, probably because they do not give a lot of thought to it. Primarily because their work is to write or probably speak. But that is something that I enjoyed going through your website. And now, having said that, now that you mentioned about youngsters, I have another question lined up that you meet a lot of youngsters. I was surprised to see that they don't only like you, there is an obsession. That day I told my friend circle that, you know what, I'm going to speak to Shubha sir, and they have their list of questions and something that they wanted to ask. I said, you know what, I'm going to be a little pricey. So they said, please just ask this question. So one of them just asked me this question. I would like to insert this in between. They said that I often feel that I am very worried, but I don't know the reason of it. Did that ever happen in the past, in historical times? That did Ram also feel sometimes scared, or did Hanuman also feel sometimes scared and they did not know? I said this is a very complicated question, but I'll try putting this to Shubha sir and let's see what he will have to say. So, do we see remnants of depression or sadness back then in those ages?
I'll tell you a story from the Ramayana that will help you understand this.
Please do.
I'll not only tell you a story where someone is depressed, but I'm also
Okay.
going to tell you a story of how to deal with it.
Ooh, lovely.
So, of course, there are many stories like
Hmm.
this. I'm going to tell you two stories in specific.
Please.
One is a story in the Ramayana where when Ram and Lakshman are moving towards Kishkinda, this is a place
Hmm.
in Hampi right now in
Hmm.
Karnataka.
Hmm. Hmm.
So they come across this Vanara group, headed by Sugriv.
Hmm.
Just before Ram and Lakshman reach there, they're actually below the mountain. And
Okay.
Sugriv's people just see Ram Lakshman below. And they actually panic, thinking that it is Vali who has sent these two people to kill Sugriv, his brother.
Correct.
So Sugriv at that point, along with his men, was really scared. Fear, panic, um, almost a mindset of wanting to give up, hopelessness, all of it together
Mhm,
they were experiencing.
mm, mm,
A lot of times, uncertainty leads to fear,
mm,
and especially uncertainty that you have not accepted, it leads to fear.
mm, mm.
If there is uncertainty, but you accept it's called adventure. There's a lot of
Uh,
uncertainty in life, but when you accept it, you think life is a big adventure, basically. But when I'm not able
Perfect.
to deal with uncertainty, it leads to a lot of fear. So Sugri was
Mm,
fearful, very scared, very fearful. And usually, when you are in fear,
mm,
you start thinking things that are not in a particular way. You start thinking it is true.
mhm,
Fear, if you expand it, it really means false evidence accepted real. Full form of fear.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So Sugriv, he saw these two people and he actually felt they come to kill me. That's how the mind is.
Correct.
The mind
Correct.
magnifies negativity, basically.
Hmm.
And he was not sure what to do, really scared. At that point, Hanuman makes an entry into the Ramayana. This is the entry of Hanuman in the Ramayana. Can you imagine what a way he enters? And the first
Actually.
thing Hanuman tells Sugriv, you know
Uh,
what he tells him? He tells him, don't worry, there is no fear on these mountains.
oh boy.
That means the very first thing Hanuman tells Sugriv is don't worry.
Don't worry.
And this is the role of Hanuman throughout, giving reassurance, giving hope, giving faith to people.
Actually,
And if you see, even today, that's what people go to Hanuman for. Whenever they're lost,
that's what
when they're
this one.
confused, they take shelter of Hanumanji. And that's his role.
Oh my God. You have a very articulate way of making it relevant. My goodness.
And I'm going to tell you
I'll
another
take my.
story. Let me
Please
tell you
do. Please.
another story from the
Please.
Mahabharata of
Uh-huh.
a situation which led to fear, stress, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the Pandavas were exiled into the forest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously, they lost everything, right? Very insulting experience, very embarrassing experience, and they had a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
While they were in the forest, Yudhishthir, the eldest among them, he broke down one day, and he was speaking to one of the sages named Dhaumya. Dhaumya was one of their teachers who traveled with them throughout the forest stay, and he used to guide them at different instances. Interestingly, the Pandavas, even though they were beggars, they had nothing, they still preferred to have one teacher traveling with them all through. So important to have a
Actually,
teacher who can accompany in the journey of life.
true.
And Yudhishthir broke down, crying, and
Mm-hmm.
he was thinking that he asked Dhaumya a question. He said, can there be anyone who is more sadder than me, who is more frustrated than me, who is a bigger
Hmm.
loser than me? He asked,
Hmm.
imagine, Yudhishthir is asking this question. Yudhishthir was the king of the world at that point of time, just some time back.
Exactly.
So he had lost his confidence completely. He was completely shaken up. And when he
Mm-hmm.
asks Dhaumya, he says, I don't think there's anybody who is worse than me, who's in a worse situation than me. And he was crying. And Dhaumya tells him a story. He tells him a
Okay.
story of Nala Damayanti. Nala Damayanti
Mm-hmm.
is a very famous story in the Mahabharata. I'm sure you don't know about it, but I'm not going to get into that story now. But the point is, Dhaumya tells Yudhishthir this story of Nala Damayanti. And
Okay.
after hearing the entire story of Nala, who has gone through really tough tribulations in his life, Yudhishthir says, I'm fine. Nothing is wrong with me. I'm not even suffering. I'm
Oh,
actually enjoying my life.
that's nice.
Yudhishthir,
Subtle.
he is able to just pull out of his depression just by hearing
Yeah.
Nala's story. And
Mm-hmm.
Yudhishthir realizes if
Mm-hmm.
Nala could tolerate so much, what I'm experiencing is nothing.
Right.
So that's how the Ramayana Mahabharata helps us see situations like this, and it's something that we can relate to in our lives.
Actually, and I mean, of course, the first thing I'm going to do after we are done like this conversation is I'm going to search about this story because I want to know what got Yudhishthir out of this question because Yudhishthir for a while sounded a lot like me.
So if you want to read this story, this book called Perfect
Yeah.
Love, which I have
Mm-hmm.
written, the first story
Perfect.
of this book is this particular story.
Oh, I have a credible source. Guys, anybody who felt like me that they should know about this story, look no further. We'll also add the links in the description for you to search out. And Shubha has an amazing website. So just go scroll through and you'll find his book also there. So yes, and I think that was amazing as a perspective to tell me that there are characters who have been introduced at junctions which actually speak about points which are relevant to us today at this moment as well. Like the way you put it, that Hanuman's introduction is exactly to at a point where there is panic, and his entire role is also based with the central idea of assurances and faith, which stands relevant today also. Like the first thing you do when you're scared is Hanuman ji bacha lena. So yes, it actually gives me good insight. And trust me, Shubha sir, I'm a parallel thinker. Okay, so the moment I speak, I also think, and I'm thinking a lot of things right now. I am replaying all the stories I've heard, and I'm going to look at them with a different perspective. So I have another question. This is from a very old audience of 7-year-old Anahita. So I was preparing those questions, and I she asked me, "Who are you going to speak to?" I said, "Shubha sir." I showed everything and everything, and her question was, "So he speaks about things that have happened in the past." I said, "Yes." So I don't know why these children are more comfortable with scientific movies. So she said me, "This is a question which I want to tell you rather than ask you. Do you?" Her question. I'm quoting her. Does he feel like he has a camera in front of him which is projecting all of that Ramayana, and he feels like a third person watching it, and all of that is in a hologram, and he can see Ram going from here to there, and then Hanuman going from here to there? And I said, this is a very curious question. So when I want to put it, do you ever feel that you are very much a part of Ramayana? Because 8 years is a long time. So do you feel like an outsider who has been given the access to the actual footage, and you have every character moving in front of you, and do you kind of relate them with your life? Like, do you have a person like, oh, you take the qualities of this character, you take the qualities of this character? Do you feel so?
Thank you what is her name?
Anahita.
Anahita, for this beautiful question. Very, children have the best questions in the world,
Oh
I do
God, yes.
courses for kids. Recently did a 18 session course
Mm-hmm.
of the entire Ramayan for a group of almost 500 kids from
Oh,
all over the
lovely.
world.
Mm-hmm.
And these kids were of all sizes and ages. And you won't believe it. Every day I would speak for 1 hour, the
Mm-hmm.
storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And then 45 minutes I would only answer questions.
Ayo.
I did this for 18 days and still their questions are not over.
Oh my goodness.
And the questions were the most amazing, intelligent,
Oh yes.
deeply thought of, out of the box type of questions. So kids asking questions is beautiful. And I encourage kids to ask questions because it helps them think.
Mm-hmm.
So the answer to this question, from my perspective, is this: I do not consider myself to be qualified to be able to see the Ramayan. I'm too small a person.
Mm-hmm.
But I consider myself to be fortunate that I got to meditate on the Ramayan. And while I meditated and while I absorbed myself in the storyline of the Ramayan, I can tell you one thing that happened. In the 6 books that I wrote, I don't remember a single moment where I struggled.
Oh my goodness.
Not a single moment where I lacked ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Not a single moment where I struggled to understand a character.
Mm-hmm.
It just flowed and it flowed beautifully. Most of these books that I've written, all the 6 books of Ramayan, each book I don't think I've taken more than 1.5, 2 months to write. To write a 60,000 to a 1 lakh word count book in 1 2 months is
Oh
with a full
God.
schedule. So that itself tells you volumes about the flow, basically.
Actually, now I feel that Anahita had a better question to ask than I do.
And also, what I personally feel is that there is a difference between um, regular knowledge and spiritual knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Regular knowledge requires competence,
It does.
but
Correct.
spiritual knowledge requires blessings. So I don't think I'm intelligent enough to comprehend everything that is there in the Ramayana, which is so profound. But I feel that I have some blessings of great teachers, great gurus, and great teachers who have and elders who have blessed me sufficiently, and because of the blessing, I was able to do what I did.
I think your humbleness and modesty is your charm because, of course, the way you're telling it, you're putting it very subtly. But to do this, one, you're gifted, you're blessed, of course. But I personally feel, if I can say that, I can take the liberty of saying that you're chosen. This doesn't happen regularly, sir. Because I'll tell you for a reason. Because when we speak to speakers, their honesty is there. yours is too, because I can, like I said, even though I don't know a particular point, there is no problem in accepting that I don't know, and I am definitely convinced to go and search it. That's the kind of impact you have. And I think that is something that makes you different and at the same time relatable also. So I don't want to tell you that you are very different and unaccessible. Rather, you're approachable, you're impacting. And at this point also, I am under the process of transformation. Okay, coming to my next question. Now, this is something that I want certain deets over. So, in the next and absolutely awaited edition in the volume of Ramayana series is the final book. Now, I'm absolutely intrigued and excited about it because the reveal is yet to be done. But can I have some words from you about it? Like the final book, I mean, it was a 6 series commitment, and how does it feel?
I feel relieved. I feel relieved that the book is finally coming out
Uh-huh.
because I realized that doing a 6 volume series, I don't know how many people in India, how many authors in India have actually taken up a task like this, very heavily researched 6 volume series based on a scripture which is already well known, which
Mhm,
everyone
mhm,
knows practically,
mhm,
So it was a pressure from the point of view of every year coming out of the book, it's not really easy, and especially
mhm.
because of the research involved in it,
Exactly.
and also what happens is when one book is very good, the expectation from the next book is even more, and the
Exactly.
expectation from the third book is even more. So I
Mhm.
have tried my best to live up to those expectations, and I can tell
Okay.
you from my personal opinion and the 2 or 3 readers who have already read the book is
Mhm.
this is the best of the 6.
Oh, lovely.
So you'll pick that into the
Delighted.
Ramayan. Most exciting, adventurous, high-paced, adrenaline-pumping part of the Ramayan with
Hey, that's
some
nice.
amazing lessons for life. Amazing lessons for life.
You were just making me more intrigued. And with the fact that the reveal is yet to happen, it's troublesome. Do it super soon. Please release it super soon. We are
Diwali,
awaiting because
4th November is
oh,
going to be the cover release and the pre-order of this.
oh, so it's going to be live on every platform associated.
Yeah,
Perfect,
it'll be available
perfect.
on Amazon for pre-orders, basically.
That's amazing because I think the hype has been subsequently and gradually is not a word I will use, humongously increasing after series after series after series. So looking forward to the sixth one. And now that you mentioned research, of course, that is again a question that I had framed that I always had this question to be very honest, and I really seek answers from every established speaker whose writing involves research and understanding of a concept because each writer has a different perspective, and I want to know yours. They say with power comes responsibility, and with your power being connected or connecting society and literature together in an unprecedented way where people believe what you say. They're influenced by what you share with them. Some might have their religious sentiments attached to it, some might have their aggressive disagreements. And all of this all together, positive, negative, stirs a change you are responsible for. So, is it pressurizing to recheck the facts, or is it absolutely unaffecting? Or do you take it in the other way where it feels validating that, a lot of people are connected to you any which ways? So, what's your take on that?
So I stand on a platform
Mhm,
that is very highly authentic.
mhm,
My connection to ISKCON, my connection to my spiritual teachers, and my
mhm,
connection to the knowledge that I represent
mhm,
is comes from a very highly authentic and a very strong tradition, basically.
mhm.
So I cannot falsely represent it. So I have to very consciously be aware of the fact that I'm trying to represent something which is powerful and which is authentic and which has stood the test of time. So that responsibility is very much there.
Mhm.
But I also know that greater than that responsibility is the responsibility of transforming as many hearts as possible through the
Mhm.
writings.
Mhm.
So sometimes when you have to when you have to be responsible for greater transformation, we may have to make some adjustments in the way we present the same story, the same narrative. Adjustment not in the form of deviations, adjustments in the form of embellishments, adjustments in the form of adding in things that will bring in a greater transformation of the heart.
Right.
So in the series, what I have also done is I've added stories which are connected to the folklore of India, which are in alignment with this, with what Valmiki Ramayana says. So Valmiki Ramayana has been my base, but in addition to the Valmiki Ramayana, I've added in stories that are very strongly in the folklore of India, which powerfully convey the message of the Ramayana, and it adds to the flavor of the original, basically. So I have taken that liberty because I felt what is more important than just telling the story as it is to give a lot of explanations of why this has happened, why that has happened, what is the logic behind this. Because a lot of the logic behind why certain things that happen in the Valmiki Ramayana do not have an answer in the Valmiki Ramayana. Therefore,
Oh,
you have to
yes.
pull in sources from other places which give greater explanation, greater pacification to the heart, and greater clarity to the mind. And
Correct.
that's when transformation happens. So I realized that in my narrative, I am trying to be very responsible to help people experience transformation, and more than anything else, help people fall in love with Ram and the Ramayana. So this is the way I would test it. So if after reading the book, if somebody says, "I love Ram, I love Ramayan," that's it. My work is done.
Oh my God, very, very clear. And I think this creative liberty that you've taken and this kind of integration of multiple resources makes me understand why there is a separate fan base for your content. Because when we speak about Ramayana, this content has been repurposed digitally, media wise, movies, TV series, you name it, and you have that form of content based on this scripture. But I think when you explain me it this way, that it is integration, there is better pacification, better satisfaction, better understanding of why a particular incident took place and where it was coming from. Hmm. I got my answer.
And in addition to all that,
Hmm.
I have added in commentaries of Acharyas. So I've
Okay.
studied many great teachers of the Ramayana from many
Mm-hmm.
places, from South India, from North India, many places, who have
Mm-hmm.
powerfully studied Ramayana. So I've
Okay.
studied their teachings and their commentaries. And
Okay.
wherever those commentaries are relevant to a modern man, I've added them also into the book. So it's a lot of that coming in.
Yeah,
And
matlab.
to add to all this, I've added
Mm-hmm.
life lessons for a modern man. Just
Which is,
like
I
today,
think,
we spoke about depression, right? We spoke about Sugriva's
correct.
depression and his panic. And I spoke about
Mm-hmm.
how Hanuman added that flavor of giving hope. Now, you
Mm-hmm.
won't find that exactly in that way written in the Ramayana anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But this is my understanding of how hope is very important for human beings. A person
Mm-hmm.
who is depressed, who is sad, he doesn't need advice, but he needs assurance.
Absolutely.
So now this is not something you'll find anywhere written in the Valmiki Ramayana or even in Acharya commentary. This is my understanding based on my approach towards life. So I've added this also. So this is the combination. It's like it's an interesting khichdi, but it
Yeah, I
tastes very
mean,
beautiful.
everybody would find something for themselves. Na? If you want to read about it, you'll find it. If you want an assurances, you will find it. So it caters to a larger audience, larger spectrum of problems, and a larger spectrum of people who are coming with different needs and requirements. I think that proves the point very nicely. So there are certain questions that during this conversation have popped up in my mind. Number one being, as a communication coach, I usually teach people about communication. So most often there are times in our, like, there are 4 days in a year where you literally sit and you think, is it actually making a change? Like, motivation is short lived, transformation might as well run for a little time. Or if, for an example, if I've told a child that this is a certain way to do it, he will follow it for their life. But as a person who enjoys a lot of credibility, you're connected to people. You're not someone who just speaks and then is gone for ages. Like, you have a real time feedback. You're actively into this. Is there any way to understand that what you're doing is fine? What is the best way to validating yourself, assuring yourself? What is best way to understanding what you're doing right or not? I mean, this is a huge question. This is complicated because I'm literally speaking my mind, but I hope I'm getting my point across. How to find whether you're doing the right thing and how to be assured when you know that you're doing the right
I have a very simple way of finding out whether I'm doing the right thing.
thing.
There are two people who
Mm-hmm.
are the most important people for me in my life. They are
Okay.
both my most powerful teachers. They're my most powerful mentors, and
Mm-hmm.
I love them.
Mm-hmm.
One is my teacher whose name is Radhanath Swami,
Mm-hmm.
and the other is Govinda Prabhu, who's again my very close uh, mentor and like my father practically.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever I do, I share with them.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment they approve it, or they
Mm-hmm.
appreciate it, or they really become happy when I share, then I
Mm-hmm.
know that I am on the right boat. I do not
Correct.
care what the rest of the world feels, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
is my primary source of validation and confirmation for myself.
Mm-hmm.
My second is people who are my peers.
Right.
I'll tell you, the most difficult people to please are your equals, right? Very easy to please the
Correct.
seniors, very easy to please the juniors, but very difficult
True.
to get somebody who is equal to you to be pleased.
Mm-hmm.
I give a lot of credit to those who are my equals, my friends,
Mm-hmm.
and if they really appreciate something I do,
Mm-hmm.
then I know for sure that I'm in the right direction.
Correct.
And third, most importantly, is the people I am responsible for in experiencing
Mm-hmm.
transformation.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, you know, there are thousands and thousands of people who reach out to me saying that they have been affected, inspired, you know,
Mm-hmm.
strongly touched by what I'm sharing. Those are obviously my greatest sources of inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, more than all this, my mother and father, when I see them happy, so many times I see them crying, you know, with what I do, and it is
Mm-hmm.
so tears of joy, obviously. And that makes me feel that I'm on the right path, I'm doing the right thing, and I'm perfectly justified in what I'm doing.
Correct. I think I relate with this because, like you said, it is such a mutually dependent concept when it comes to validation. Your people around you, the people you look forward to, the ones you look up to, have a larger say when it comes to your belief whether you're doing it right or not. And truly said, there is nothing more beautiful than someone you look up to telling you that you're doing right. Your peers assuring you that, you know what, fine, you're doing good. So, yes, I get my answer. Next question is, I mean, this is a tricky question, but out of so many books that you've written, which one would be your favorite? I mean, this is a very evil question.
Open night meditations.
Oh, you have an answer. Oh my
Even before
goodness.
you say it, I can tell you of all the hundreds of books that I will write in the future, this will be my best. It's called
Why?
Open Eyed Meditations.
Yes.
It's it's a very special book for many reasons. One
Okay.
of the reasons is that this book has taken its own sweet time to come. It's
Mm-hmm.
taken probably, I mean, probably this is one book that I've written the longest period of time. Most of the books I
Okay.
write it in a few months, 2, 3 months, literally.
Mm-hmm.
But this
Mm-hmm.
book I've probably written in over 1.5, 2 years,
Oh.
because this book was not written as a book. It
Uh-huh.
was written as my blog, basically. So
Okay.
I used to keep writing, you know, different things. As and
Mm-hmm.
when so somebody would ask me a question, and I would think about it and then write a blog, you know, as the answer to that question, basically. So I would
Okay.
walk somewhere in my travels across the world. I would see something, and that
Mm-hmm.
would trigger some thoughts. I would go back and write an article, you know. So that is
Mm-hmm.
the way in which this whole book has been written. Like I remember once I was in Mauritius and I was watching lions in a
Mm-hmm.
safari in Mauritius.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw those lions, I had a very strong thought.
Mm-hmm.
I went back and wrote an article.
Okay.
The name of the article is Two Lessons Learned from a Lion. And you know, so like this, just throughout my journey, I've been um, blessed to think a lot, you know, and those thoughts came out in the form of these articles. Like once I was in a mountainous place in Hampi, in one of the mountains, and
Okay.
there was absolutely no network there. And I was with a group of almost about 5,000 people, and we were just sitting there in that place, in that holy place of Hampi, waiting for a talk. But there was a time gap, almost like an hour, and people were, they had time at hand, So the natural thing that most people do today when you have time is you pick up your mobile phone, isn't it? And the interesting thing was there was no network. And I was seeing how people were struggling with their mobile phones, no network, desperately looking for signal everywhere. And when I saw that, I had a thought and I went and wrote an article. So
Oh
that is how
God.
this book came up. So,
You
so I
are
published.
insanely creative. Like two
So,
lessons learned from a lion. And even cell phones addiction is something that can contribute to your creativity. Please continue. I want to hear further.
so this book is called Overnight Meditations, which is one of my favorite books. And this book has caused really a lot of impact in people's hearts. So this book is essentially 64 chapters. Each chapter looks at a problem of life seen through the lens of Ramayana and Mahabharata. So every single chapter is based on one or two stories from the Ramayana and Mahabharata, and finding life solutions and answering life's tough questions through that, basically.
Wow. I mean, life problems from the lenses of scriptures that we already have. My brain is having huge exercise time right now. But then that is interesting. I mean, I have never found it so relevant. Like I thought कि ठीक है, that is there. Like come on, I should be blamed. But मुझे ऐसा लगता था कि that is also I'll tell you one thing. I've always been fascinated about the fact that इतना फेथ है ना हमारे जनरेशन में या हमसे बड़ी जनरेशन में हमारे पेरेंट्स के हमारे दादा दादी के दे हैव unshakable faith in these scriptures, these characters. Rather, I will not say characters, I'd say gods. My point is, where does it come from? I mean, they would be absolutely okay saying भगवान संभाल लेंगे, and I'm like, वो संभाल लेंगे पर आप कैसे assured हो और आप इतने relaxed कैसे? Because ultimately the whole point here, even in this generation, is just to be composed, just to have everything in control, and they have the key to it, and they just tell that they've been introduced to it very nicely, and I think that problem would be solved because, like I said, when I see speakers like you or anybody who is in this domain coming from a place of authenticity, I wish you a lot of platforms. Everybody deserves to listen to you at least one time so that they can choose for themselves. Probably हम जो ढूंढ रहे हैं वो आपके पास है. You have answers to my questions. You have stories to tell me that what I'm feeling is not invalid. Rather, I just have to look it through from a lens which is probably available, authentic, proven, and might as well solve my problem altogether. Or even if it doesn't, I'll have something to hold on to. So that brings me to another question. What has been your favorite feedback so far? Is there any particular moment that you remember that somebody said to you and has stayed with you for the longest time now? It can be an appreciation or anything.
There is a small girl,
Mm-hmm.
who is in seventh standard.
Okay.
And this girl is really small. Seventh standard is like, I mean,
Yeah.
at least when I look back at my seventh standard, I don't even know whether I was conscious enough to comprehend things of this world.
Uh-huh.
And this girl has really been so inspired by some of the things that I've written and also spoken.
Mm-hmm.
And she sends me little notes of appreciation.
Oh.
It's so sweet and it's so inspiring, actually. And
Okay.
just 2 days back, she sent me a note, which I don't think I'll ever forget in my life. She's telling me that I feel in my last life you are either my father or my guru.
Oh my goodness.
Imagine a seventh standard little girl speaking like that. And she really finds a strong connection with what I'm sharing with her. I mean, why would anybody? I mean, she's a stranger to me. I have not
Yeah.
even met her once, right? And I don't know how she found me, how she found my books, and how she found my courses, but she's
Mm-hmm.
very strongly connected.
No, but that's really, really wholesome to understand because beautiful. I mean, that is so beautiful and so precious. And I am sure that you deserve it because these words cannot be crafted. They cannot just come out of nowhere. They can't be forced upon. It comes from heart. And beautiful. Oh God, touch wood. You should, of course, there should be a lot of people affected because that is when you will receive such kind of feedbacks. Apart from that, did you ever think, I mean, of course, like you said, that when you imagined first writing that it was going to be a spiral book with all your stories, but I want to understand when you were a kid, did you have any expectations of becoming an engineer, a pilot, or a chef, or something like that? Or did you always know that I'm going to do something? क्योंकि जो आजकल standard answer होता है कि मैं कुछ तो भी करूंगा, but मुझे पता नहीं है कि मैं क्या करूंगा. So what kind of child were you?
In my childhood, I don't think
Mhm.
I thought what I want to become at all because most of my childhood I was struggling with what I am now.
Oh.
See, the reality was that most of my childhood, at least till my seventh standard, I
Mhm.
struggled a lot in my education
Mhm.
in terms of um, understanding things, and I was just not able to get things. Basically, I was pretty dumb. You can say that. Probably because I didn't get the right teachers or the right environment, whatever it is. At least I'm not very conscious of my first 7 years of school. My
Mhm.
life actually began in 8th standard. 8th, 9th,
Okay.
10th, that is the time when I actually started breathing.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
actually started developing my own little personality.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I was very shy, very introvert,
Mhm.
wouldn't speak much to people, just remain on my own basically. Never ever took part in any public competitions, never took part in any sports competitions, never took part in any debate, elocution, essay writing, nothing at all.
Okay.
In my entire life, I would have not written a single article also. The first thing I
Okay.
ever wrote was a book. And that too
The
when I was
leap.
30 years of age.
The leap.
Absolutely.
Oh God. But amazing, Shubha sir. Trust me when I say this. I'm glad that it happened. I'm glad that you happened. I'm glad that you chose this because as much as I don't know if I'm able to put that intensity out there when I'm saying this, but a lot of people are thankful to you. A lot of people are looking forward to what you have to share for various reasons. Some might be finding problems ke solutions. Some might be finding a figure to look forward to. And I trust me when I say this, you have been a source of not only an inspiration to them, but something they can really, really, really look up to. So thank you for being who you are. This conversation was filled with a lot of insights. I am going to read a lot of things for sure from credible sources, and probably I'll also start putting some notes of appreciation because I want to be spoken about just like she's been spoken about, but I can't match the kind of intensity and the wholesomeness she had when she said that you are a father figure to her. So I wish we had a lot of more time because this conversation can go on and on. You're an amazing speaker. I can listen to you for hours. But thank you so much for giving us this time. I know you have a full schedule, but thank you for allowing us this time. And I hope that I did not disappoint you and it was equally enjoyable for you.
Not at all. In fact, this is one of my. I didn't even feel that I'm a part of a literary festival. We're just having a chat and a beautiful conversation. I think this is one of my best lit fest conversations so far. So
Thank you, sir.
thank you for making it so authentic, as you keep saying, and keeping it so alive. And very, very grateful to Orange City Literary Festival and Mrinalji for having me over and being a part of this series. And it's always a pleasure and honor to be here to share my thoughts.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Raisoni Group, a vision beyond